Joining me now from Washington, D.C., Director of Investigations and Research at Judicial Watch, Chris Farrell. So, Chris, there's been a lot of moving parts regarding this investigation. Judicial Watch has been on the front ends of this. What do you make of the latest developments regarding Bruce Ohr and his involvement with people like Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS?
It's a seditious conspiracy that really sought to take down not just the candidacy through a penetration operation, really a counterintelligence effort before the president was ever elected, but once he was elected, a very determined effort really to overthrow the outcome of the election and to destabilize and remove President Trump from office. The level of effort involved in this with a very senior Justice Department official, Bruce Ohr, who you mentioned in the intro, he's the number 4 guy at the Justice Department, maintaining contact with Christopher Steele, a former MI6 spy who was in contact with Russians. Surprise, surprise, there's your Russian collusion. You have Hillary Clinton paying a guy to make contact with Russians to dream up a hoax story. And then from 2 different channels, both Bruce Ohr and Bruce Ohr's wife, they're pumping that information from Steele back into the FBI and Department of Justice at a point where Steele had been terminated as an FBI source because he was an intelligence peddler. He was a leaker. He was running around selling stories, and he was deemed to be unreliable and out of control. So the FBI fires him, but that doesn't stop anything. You have Bruce Ohr and his wife, Nellie, spreading this info around, communicating, channeling information back and forth. And we learned in these 302s we just got that Bruce Ohr actually produced a thumb drive to the FBI containing all of his wife's work, but very carefully with the header on the document saying Fusion GPS stripped off the document. So it was just the content of all of her work.
Yeah, I mean, basic error, I guess, right at the top. You'd hope that the investigator that launched this massive investigation would know to cover up the font of his headline a little bit better than that. But a lot of the critics, for example, and I mean critics of the investigators, so a lot of conservatives are waiting for the investigation to come out going into the origins, the inception of this investigation, but they haven't been very pleased so far with the work of maybe people like Michael Horowitz or Huber, for that matter. They've really been waiting for this bombshell. They have a little bit more faith in Durham. Do you think that's a fair assessment for a lot of conservatives to be taking at this point?
It is, because, look, Mr. Horowitz, the Inspector General, is not going to write a report that essentially is a criminal indictment, okay? Inspectors General, that I derisively call the Department of Cover-Ups, or a place where the truth goes to die, Inspectors General write administrative reports about the operations, the internal mechanics of a particular agency or department. You can uncover stuff that's criminal in the process or in the course of doing that, but he's really a process guy looking at administration and systems and how people did or did not abide by the regulations. There can still be juicy stuff in that, right, but frankly, really the weight of everyone's hopes lie with Mr. Durham.
And, you know, for example, Special Counsel Robert Mueller, he had a lot of tools at his disposal, grand jury proceedings, subpoena power, stuff like that.
Correct.
See that there is maybe misconduct found in the FBI and the DOJ. What is the next step after that? I know it's very hypothetical considering what is found, but I think a lot of Americans, especially a lot of conservatives, want to see action taken on this front if there is misconduct found. So what would come next?
Right. Well, the process is clear. Mr. Durham, in his investigation, which is a criminal investigation, would gather evidence and then go to a grand jury and get an indictment. That's where the rubber meets the road. A lot of the stuff we've been kind of led up to this point has been good, it's been important, it's been evidence, but Durham is the guy with the keys, and he needs to, impanel a grand jury, bring evidence, bring indictments, and go to trial. And I think there's a lot of folks out there that will only be satisfied, will only be comfortable with any kind of confidence in the justice system when Durham brings indictments, from a grand jury and puts people on trial for a criminal, seditious conspiracy against the Republic, against the Constitution, trying to overthrow a presidential election.
And, we touched on Michael Horowitz a little bit before, but his department came out with a criminal referral, or criminal referral against James Comey, but they decided not to act on that referral. Of course, that was over his leaked memo, and which is something that a lot of these investigations are looked into. Leaking of confidential information maybe kickstart this whole investigation. But what do you think the reasoning was behind the decision not to prosecute or file an indictment, rather, against James Comey?
I'm going to be a little revolutionary here and tell you that I don't necessarily believe the reporting completely. I don't believe that there has been an absolute rock-solid decision not to bring an indictment against Mr. Comey concerning the leaks. I believe that they're not bringing one right now. Yeah. So I think once Mr. Durham gets rolling, nothing precludes him. Frankly, I think that's going to be an ancillary or a tertiary charge, that there's larger, bigger fish to fry, and they'll be throwing in as a fifth, sixth, or seventh count something on leaking.
Yeah, and a lot of people too are saying that if that is the only, or if that's not the only charge, they don't want to bring forward a very small crime like that because it kind of delegitimizes the rest of the investigation. It makes it look almost like there's no other findings. So a lot of people speculating at this point that they may be holding off on that James Comey one until, as you were saying, the big fish comes to fry. But until then, I guess only time will tell. Chris, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.